Today we're going to be reacting to the interview President Trump had with Judge Jeanine, this aging brown woman. We're going to see exactly what goes on.
Joe Biden has indicated after the Woodward information came out that your handling of the coronavirus and that situation was not only despicable, but it's almost criminal. What do you say to Joe Biden?
Well, I think a statement like that is criminal because we did a much better job than he could ever have done. As you know, he was months later before he even thought the ban was a good thing, and ultimately he had to apologize for what he did. We would have lost hundreds of thousands of lives. And what I said to Woodward was actually good. I said, calm, we need calm, we don't need panic. They want me to jump up and down and start screaming, is everyone going to die? Is everyone going to... That's not what leadership is about.
Exactly. This is leadership. In fact, hundreds of thousands of people would have died otherwise. Now, the problem with this argumentation point is that nobody cares, you know. If they can't see it, they won't believe it, okay? And if they already hate you and they're already siding with Biden over Trump, what makes you think that saying, well, I saved lives that you have not tangibly seen saved? Like, what is that going to do? They're not going to believe you. They would have to give you the benefit of the doubt to believe your numbers, and they don't trust you as a person already. So again, that's a stupid way to think in terms of convincing people that are on the other side. And then again, with the mask mandate, or at the very least, the travel ban. Yes, the travel ban was relatively early, considering the several weeks that the Communist Party of China was preventing the information of this coming out. Frankly, I do believe that he acted pretty quick, and yes, he was unfairly criticized at the time, and no, Democrats did not get the blame for preventing him from doing the travel ban. So again, he's right on all accounts here, but people don't give him the benefit of the doubt. So how well this will help him explain his actions in response to the pandemic, I don't know.
Cheerleader for the country. We need calm. That's all I've said. And by the way, that was done after. I had already banned China from coming into the country.
That was in February. So you did the ban January 31st.
Yeah. So, Jeanine, I took tremendous steps. Everybody knew how I feel. Otherwise, I wouldn't be banning China. And then shortly thereafter, I banned Europe. We saved hundreds of thousands of lives with each one of those bans, and saved probably 2 or 2.5 million lives by doing what we did early.
So you say that your timing was good, but let me ask you about Bob Woodward's timing. He did this interview with you on February 7th where you talked about how dangerous the virus was, and yet he waited until September, 7 months later, to announce to the American public how dangerous you said it was. Was his timing good?
Look, he is an opportunist.
That's a softball.
Not a bad guy, to be honest. He's doing his thing. His first book, I didn't have anything to do with it, and he wrote things that were false and untrue, and I could have straightened it out. And I said, I took quite a few phone calls, 16 phone calls or something like that, and we had some good conversations, not long, but good conversations. And I don't even know if the book is good or bad. I mean, I can tell you that what this says is that I said, don't panic. We don't want panic. You know, the press will make everything look bad because it's fake, the fake news. Most of it, I'd say 85%, unfortunately.
I want to see him do interviews on CNN instead of Fox.
I discussed with him lots of different things. I think they were very good discussions. We'll see how it comes out. But on this subject, if you look, and he's actually being hit because if he thought it was wrong, then he should have reported it early. You know, if lives were going to be lost, he should have reported it early. The truth is, he didn't think there was anything wrong with it, and I think that he thought it was surprising that the press even picked it up. It's fake news.
See, that's an amazing point.
Well, in fact, when he called you in March, a month later, you said to him, I didn't want to cause panic, and that's...
He's degrading the character of Woodward, which is exactly what you need to do when you're trying to... You know, when you're asserting this nonpartisan historian is accusing you of doing something bad, and you say, no, he is partisan, yes, he is an opportunist, yes, he is disingenuous, and no, he does not care about America. That's exactly right. That's the mode of, you know, this is how you need to buffer the criticism of your administration.
You know, why I, as a leader, didn't go out and just say everyone's going to die.
Well, go out and look at the great leaders of the world. Winston Churchill stood on the rooftops in London, very calm, making speeches. Winston Churchill, you want calmness. You don't want somebody going to be jumping up and down. I could do that too. I could jump up and down, say, oh, this is terrible, this is terrible. We want strength, we want leadership, and we don't want panic.
What about the vaccine itself? Now, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and the Gallup survey that they just did says that the acceptance of the vaccine is pretty much going along political lines. The Democrats don't want to accept it because they don't trust it, because it's coming out of your administration.
They don't want it because they think it's going to make me look good and it wins the election for me. But we're very
interesting, right? That now the nut jobs that don't like vaccines are the Democrats. Awesome triangulation by the Democrats. I feel as if this will shoot them in the foot. This is great.
Close to a vaccine. We also have already come out with therapeutics. If you look at remdesivir and others, the plasma, you take a look at the things that we've come out with already, and the number, we're 85% better in terms of fatalities. You look at the kind of numbers. I don't know if you've been seeing this, but we're really rounding the corner. And this is actually without anything further than we already have. But we have some very
good rhetoric. Rounding the corner. The worst has already gone by. It's only going to get better from here.
I can't use the word cure yet, but pretty close to a cure. You're going to be pretty close to a cure. The vaccine itself, I mean, it could come out in October, but whether it's October, November, December, it's going to come out very soon. We have great companies. It
better come out in October. If it comes out in December, what's the point?
The numbers, you're correct. The numbers are going down. And there's a question as to whether or not the lockdown works, that maybe people need to get outside. And if the coronavirus cases are dropping, and Joe Biden now is coming out and saying, you know, on the advice of a scientist, I would shut it all down again. How do you think that's going to work for him?
Well, it would be a disaster, and we're setting records on job production. You know, we're 10.4 million for the last 4 months. Nobody's ever seen numbers like this. We're setting
quick recovery. This is another good talking point.
The country's coming back. It's a super V. It's beyond
V-shape. Okay, that's a good rhetoric point.
Retail sales are beyond any number they were ever at. I mean, think of it. We're doing numbers now as we're rounding, I think, the final turn.
His facial reactions make it seem more true.
Matter, with or without. Now, having the vaccine is great. It's going to happen very soon. Could happen in October. It could very well happen in October. But we're rounding the turn on the virus. They have to open up. It's only the Democrats that are closed. And in my opinion, they're closed for political reasons.
Exactly.
North Carolina, you have...
Okay, blame the bad economy on the lockdown states that are democratically held. Exactly the right point. If you say, well, the economy is bad, Mr. Trump, well, he can say, well, when I had control and the states were open, the economy was good, as well as you had the factor of the Democrats locking down for an extended period. That hurt the economy as well. Again, this is exactly the type of rhetoric that you need when you're president. The incumbent, blame it on the other people. This is correct. And he's not only saying the truth, but again, this is a good rhetoric, okay? Good and useful rhetoric.
You have Michigan. You have a couple of other states that are close. New York. I mean, look at New York, what they're doing in New York, that poor city. With the restaurants, you can't go to a restaurant. It's like a ghost town.
The longer the lockdowns, the less popular they get.
Is disgraceful between Cuomo and de Blasio. That combination, I've never seen anything like it in my life. It's look, coming from New York, it's a very sad thing to witness. But we have to open up our states, totally open them. They're keeping them closed because they want, on November 3rd, they want to have the numbers as bad as possible. Based on the numbers that you're seeing, it's not even affecting us. But probably it would be better if these states were open. Forget about numbers, though. The people that are inside those lockdowns, they're suffering between depression, losing their jobs, drugs, alcohol, all of the different things that are happening to those people. That's causing much more damage than the virus itself.
Well, what's interesting, you mentioned North Carolina. Voting has already started in North Carolina. They're on lockdown. How do you think that impacts people who want to vote for you?
Well, look, I like people to go out and vote, but if they want to sign something, you know, you have solicited and unsolicited ballots.
Yep.
In the country, they're going to send out 80 million unsolicited. In other words, people that don't even know what a ballot is, all of a sudden, here comes a ballot. Now, we don't even know if the people are going to get it. That's my problem. Supposing they're not sending them to Republican neighborhoods, supposing they're not sending them to wherever, or supposing the people aren't giving them back, or they go out and they harvest them. Somebody could be either way. But the Democrats seem to do that. I mean, they played that game for a long time.
Yeah, I've prosecuted those cases.
Well, you might have to prosecute a lot more. The fact is they're playing very dirty. 80 million ballots. We never had any number like that anywhere close to that. And you're going to see a mess on election night that's going to be, it's going to be legendary. And all they have to do is say, go out and vote, or request a ballot. Get what's called a solicited ballot, or absentee. A lot of people use the word absentee. Get an absentee ballot where you request it, it comes to you, you vote, and you send it back. That's different. But they're just sending out all over. They're sending out 80 million ballots.
Well, they're generic, and a lot of people don't know what to do with them. A lot of people have moved. A lot of people have died. The registration rolls, a lot of them haven't been purged.
So seeds of doubt. Okay,
they don't even
good.
Want to have signatures
They're
verified.
not confirming.
They don't want to have signatures verified.
If he loses by a
Where are they
small
sending
amount,
them?
he can
Who
blame
are
it
they
on the
sending
mail-in
them to?
votes.
Who's sending them back? Who's sending them back?
That's a good coping
it's
mechanism, honestly.
It's so unconstitutional.
And it is
so
screwing him, I
dishonest.
think. So.
And you have states that can't
He's right.
even do small elections.
So what can you
that
do
way.
about it?
Well, we're in courts, and many, many courts right now, and hopefully the courts are going to decide, because if they don't, you're going to have one hell of a mess on election night.
So you talked about election night. I want to talk about election night also, but it brings me to the issue of law and order. And you, when you ran in 2016, you were the law and order candidate. It's almost prescient to think that 4 years later, that is one of the main issues. So we've got this anarchy going on in the streets. We've got towns run by and states run by Democrat governors and mayors who are refusing to allow the National Guard to come in. There are people in those cities and states who want order to come in, but you can't go in unless they request your help.
That's right. Every problem.
What are you going to do? Let's say there are threats. They say that they're going to threaten riots if they lose on election night, assuming we get a winner on election night. What are you going to do?
We'll put them down very quickly.
How are you
if they
gonna do
do
that?
We have the right to do that. We have the power to do that if we want. Look, it's called insurrection. We just send in, and we do it very easy. I mean, it's very easy. I'd rather not do that because there's no reason for it. But if we had to, we'd do that and put it down within minutes. Within minutes. Minneapolis, they were having problems. We sent in the National Guard within a half an hour. That was the end of the problem. It all went away.
Kenosha.
You look at Kenosha. Look at the problems they had. In fact, the sheriffs there, the police chief, they're all on my side 100%. Law enforcement all over the country is on my side. And I will say this, look, we have, even with the horrible things that are going on in New York and Chicago, all run by Democrats. Everything we're talking about, is run by Democrats. We're not talking about one Republican place. It's all run by Democrats. Even the police chiefs, they're all quitting all over the country.
Yes.
Every single one, I think I saw 15 or 20, every single one of them is from a Democrat city. Look, before China sent us the plague, before the plague came in, we had the best crime numbers in history. Mm-hmm. When the plague came, it changed things. Let's face it, it changed things. But all of the problems are in Democrat-run cities. They're badly
A lot of the
run,
good part
taxes
is
are
that
too much,
you can
wanna
blame
defund
literally
the
everything
police.
that's going on wrong with the
All in it.
Democrats, honestly.
He hasn't still, to this day, used the term.
If you're talking about riots, it's a Democrat leftist problem. Crime, it's their fault. Lockdowns, their fault. Bad economy, their fault. Bad economy, China's fault. Virus, China's fault. I mean, Trump, okay, fine. Maybe he could have done a couple things in retrospect and with hindsight better, but in general, he caused none of these problems himself directly. It was the leftist attitudes that did this, as well as the Chinese virus, which was nobody's fault other than the government in China, then obfuscated and lied about it for the first while until other people had to dig up the information themselves, and they were screwed.
Law and order. He's afraid to use the term because he's going to lose. He would lose the radical left supporters that he's got, if they even show up for him, because there's a question as to whether or not they're going to show up.
Exactly. You have to say, okay, you have to sandwich Biden between the radical left and the moderate left, and, to one extent, he wants to get the centrist vote, the suburban vote, but in another respect, he wants to get the turnout high with the Bernie people. So again, wedging him in the middle, where he's ineffective in either sector, is going to be the key way to win. Great.
But they don't want to talk about law and order. One other thing, you have a lot of people living in the suburbs. You know it well. You live in Westchester. You know it well. I ended a rule, a regulation, where low-income housing has been forced into the suburbs. And this has been going on for a long time, but especially so under Biden and Obama. I ended it. I terminated it. Not going to happen anymore.
That's amazing
unless
optics.
I'm not here, in which case they're going to reinstitute it worse. So the suburbs are not going to have these projects forced into them.
This is very popular.
Now, who in the suburbs is not going to vote for me?
Exactly.
They're going to make the projects bigger, better. They're putting Cory Booker in charge. I mean, one of the most liberal. The most liberal is Kamala, but
Spartacus,
Cory's right
all right.
there. And he's going to be in charge of building projects in the suburbs. You're going to destroy your suburbs. It's already happening.
Property values will be
You
demolished.
see what they've done. They take over the zoning and they force projects. Really terrible situation.
So the cities are being destroyed, and the combination of lawlessness and the pandemic shut down New York City, and now the suburbs. But you know,
well, the suburbs is going to be next. Look,
yeah,
the suburbs, the people, these same protesters, but they're not protesters. They're anarchists. They're agitators. And they're rioters.
Who are they?
They're people that in many cases are paid.
By whom?
And then they're stupid kids.
Who are they? Who's paying them?
People that we're looking at right now.
Oh, jeez.
We're looking at them right now.
Can you tell me?
No, not yet, but you'll be going to be finding out pretty soon. Look.
Epic.
They're stupid people.
Soros named
because
them.
They'll be overthrown as soon as they get their wish.
It's a shadowy
People don't
cabal.
respect them. They're just using
I
their
wonder
money.
who it could
These
be.
are super liberal people that have money, and they're helping these anarchists, and they're agitators, and they're dangerous. Did you see what happened over the weekend?
What type of exclusive elite class or tribe would be funding communists and anarchists?
Two elderly people having dinner at a restaurant, and they walk in and they take a steak
curious.
and they take the potato and,
And
they eat
that's
it.
exactly the problem. Now you're waiting to be asked in. When is that change? When do you cross the Rubicon?
Well, in Kenosha, they asked me in.
Right.
And we did a job like nobody's
Sending
ever
the
seen
troops is very
But if
popular
they
as well.
don't ask you in, there
Then
are
you're not allowed to
American
do it
people who want
unless you do insurrection, in which case it's just not big enough for insurrection.
You won't do insurrection before
No,
election
you don't
day.
need it. You don't know.
Not yet.
Oh, I'd be willing to do it in a heartbeat if you needed it, but we don't need it. Our National
When do you
Guard,
need it?
our National Guard is so good.
So he's
and so
definitely
tough.
not
They
sending
go
in
right away.
anything as long
Police
as he's not
departments
getting
in places
asked,
that we're talking about. Seattle, we were going into Seattle.
which is kind of smart.
And they solved the problem the night before we got there. We
Yeah,
were
they
getting
didn't
ready
want
to
you
go.
there.
They heard we were going
Did you
in.
hear Ted Wheeler's numbers? They're like 20% in Portland.
Ted Wheeler's a disaster. He's a
Right.
laughingstock.
Based?
He
All
went
right.
out to protest with the so-called agitators, and they were going to destroy him. They were going to beat him up badly. He fortunately had security, but they were going to beat him up badly. The man is a disaster. If he would say, come into Portland, within a half an hour, the whole thing would be
But
solved.
he's not going to say that.
The governor's gotten closer. Look what's going on out there. I will
That's
tell
Kate
you.
Brown, is
The
that?
governor has gotten closer. I
The
spoke to
female
the
governor
2
has
days
more
ago.
balls than
They're
the soy
arresting a lot of
boy
people.
mayor. All right.
Now, we sent in the U.S. Marshals for the killer, the man that killed the young man in the street. Just
Right.
shot him. I mean, it was
Yeah,
on television.
cold blood.
Cold-blooded killed him. He didn't like his hat, or he didn't like something, and it wasn't a Trump hat.
Right. It was peaceful.
It was
Prayer.
It was a lot. It was a religious hat.
Right.
And he shot him cold blood. 2.5 days went by, and I put out, when are you going to go get him? And the U.S. Marshals went in to get him.
Based.
And
All right, that's a good
In a
look.
short period of time, they ended in a gunfight.
Sending in
This
like
guy
the
was a
secret
violent
police and stuff, I
criminal.
think is cool.
And the U.S. Marshals killed him. And I will tell you something, that's the way it has to be. There has to be retribution when you have crime like this.
Yeah.
There can't be guys standing up that want to fight. They want to fight.
But
you can't throw bricks at people with shields.
But the problem, Mr. President, you and I both agree, the problem is there are now prosecutors who are not prosecuting the protesters. This is like a grassroots level. They're being funded by socialists who are now electing people like I used to prosecute crime. They're letting them go.
So what's going to happen, and this is a shame, you're going to have a backlash like you've never seen if these people don't stop. Because you have very smart, very tough people that aren't going to take it anymore. And once they say, we're not going to take it anymore, it's going to end in a very vicious backlash. And that's a terrible thing.
How does it end?
All right, well, that's what it is. Interesting. All right, so that's the interview. Clearly, you can see over here that Donald Trump handled this pretty well. The rhetoric is pretty expert on his level. He's mastered this to the extent where he is deflecting the blame that is happening in his country as the incumbent on the opposition, while the opposition is running on putting in stability when he is the one that is offering stability and they're not taking it. So they're looking like the radicals, and Biden's looking like the old man that cannot satiate the radical base. And he clearly does not have the momentum to win an election at this point, or win the center. Interesting point. Again, excellent performance by Donald Trump. I would rate this interview in terms of how well he explained his case. I'd say an 8 out of 10. He was pretty good. Some of the stuff he says is trite. I've heard it several times before already, but I think hammering the message is working in the polls. Therefore, hopefully this will translate into a win. Anyways, guys, that is all. Again, 8 out of 10, pretty good. Yeah. Anyways, guys, what do you think about this interview? What do you think about this type of commentary over interviews or rallies? What's the emotion? What is the move on this sort of thing on YouTube? Anyways, guys, bye.